Mr. Griffith for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with the gentlelady that we didn't have enough officers that were on duty that day, and it did create a number of different issues, plus we were unprepared. As a Capitol Police, we're just unprepared for those numbers. That being said, Assistant Chief Gallagher, you said in your testimony, and I quote, it is my understanding that both of these devices were fully functional and viable pipe bombs. However, it is unclear whether they would have gone off on their own had they not been rendered safe by our bomb squad. How did you form that opinion that it's unclear they would not have gone off on their own?
Yes, sir. The viability and functionality of the bombs, of the pipe bombs that were placed at the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, those statements come from our trained bomb techs, highly trained, highly capable bomb techs, that when they were presented with a picture of the device on scene, they didn't have all the context of when the devices were planted, how long they had already been sitting there. They were looking at a picture of a pipe bomb to them, which comprised of all the components. They didn't know, obviously, what was inside it.
Well, what made you think it wouldn't go off?
Based on the bomb tech's experience and
Okay,
training.
that's all I need to know. I appreciate that. I have great concerns, and I understand that there was a dilemma with manpower, but lots of vehicles are passing by here. The one at the DNC headquarters was found at approximately 1:05, but if I understood your testimony correct, Assistant Chief, and tell me if I've got it wrong, the buildings, the people were not told to shelter in place until 1:30. Isn't that what your testimony says? I'm looking at page 3. In both your oral and your written testimony, you said at 1:30 p.m. DNC and Fairchild building personnel were told to shelter in place.
That is correct at 1:30.
Okay. So here's my question. There were people. Now, we've already gone over that the perimeter wasn't secured. But the Vice President-elect of the United States is inside one of the buildings, and there's a 25-minute delay before anybody goes over and says, y'all might want to shelter in place. That's not acceptable, is it?
That's not accurate.
All right. Tell me why it's not accurate.
Yes. When the initial call came out, our counter-surveillance agents found the pipe bomb. They immediately went up and alerted the 2 law enforcement agencies that were at the DNC, which was the U.S. Secret Service and Metropolitan Police Department. Then those counter-surveillance agents moved over to do exactly what they were trained to do, which was go establish an incident command post.
Well, why does your testimony say that they were told to shelter in place at 1:30? Because in the meantime, instead of sheltering in place, the Vice President-elect of the United States leaves and driving past the pipe bomb that was viable, according to evidence.
That is correct. And the time frame between when we set up our incident command post and when the shelter in place was, there was also teams, not U.S. Capitol Police, that were telling the DNC to evacuate as well. And that's why you had the evacuation of the protectee and others.
All right, so there was cross communications. Mr. Black, you said that you hoped someday we would identify this individual. But wouldn't you agree with me that in light of the fact that the perimeter was not secured, because there's 2 reasons to secure the perimeter. First and foremost, to protect the lives of people, correct?
Yes.
And second, to preserve evidence. Isn't that also correct?
Yes.
And without having secured that perimeter, we will never know if there was any incriminating evidence that might have been found in that perimeter zone, because you've got all kinds, you've got pedestrians walking past the robots, you've got numerous vehicles, including law enforcement vehicles, driving by where they're about to detonate and in the vicinity. Isn't that crime scene just a mess as far as trying to find any evidence that you can later use to link a suspect to the site?
So the device itself was intact at the time. It was placed in the evening hours of the 5th and located on the 6th. So there was a lot of activity between
Are you
those 2
sure? Because here's what a good criminal defense attorney is going to say. You tell me if you don't think this sounds reasonable from a defense attorney standpoint. You saw if they identify the individual that placed what is believed to be the bomb, hours go by, and you had a search by the Secret Service at DNC and the dog didn't light on an explosive. So clearly the device that my client might have left there wasn't the device that was later determined to be the pipe bomb, because it wasn't picked up by the bomb sniffing dog. Doesn't that sound like what's going to happen if they ever do identify the guy in the video?
It may be a good question, but I believe it's flawed in its logic.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I win that case. I yield back.